Today I'm driving the Chevrolet Corvette Grand Sport. What is the Corvette Grand Sport? It's basically a track-focused version of the Stingray, meaning you still get the same 6.2 liter V8 engine with 466 horsepower, but you get a lowered suspension, you get a reworked chassis, you get limited slip differential, you get some various aerodynamic bits added. Think of it as the Porsche GT3 version of the Corvette. It's not more powerful, but it's more track focused. And I have to say, it is an awesome bit of machinery. First of all, it sounds absolutely amazing with its V8 engine. Then it looks marvelous. And I really think Corvettes are always a bit brash, a bit loud, but this thing, it just looks amazing. And I can't help but love it. Besides the exterior, I think this car has also a nice interior. Now in this case it has this Alcantara steering wheel, which you may like or not like. I'm personally not a big fan of it because it feels like, strange. But in general the interior I think is nice. It's not the nicest interior I've ever seen, but then again, it's perfectly adequate. I think long gone are the complaints from yesteryear where Corvettes had really, cheap interiors. Driving this car, you really feel it. It's a sports car, a true sports car. It feels very precise. It feels very harsh, which in this case I think is very good. And also you get this almost instant power delivery from the engine, which, with 6.2 liters has more than enough torque. And at the same time, still available old school manual transmission. In this case it's a 7-speed manual transmission, which in my opinion is one gear too many, but then again, you don't have to use it. The gearbox has a feature that automatically blips the throttle when you downshift. This rev matching function can be activated, funnily enough, by using either of those two panels on the steering wheel, which in an automatic version would be the panels to shift the gears, but in this case they are just using them to activate or deactivate the rev matching function, which is quite funny because that way they didn't have to make a separate steering wheel for the non-automatic version. This car also has the competition package, which is an upgrade, meaning you get sport seats, you get some more carbon fiber bits, carbon fiber interior, plus some other bits. And I have to say, these competition seats, they're actually really nice. I mean, they're light seats, they don't have a lot of padding, but at the same time, they are still comfortable and they are heated and ventilated. And the ventilation function in this car is probably the strongest I have ever felt. It has 3 levels, and the lowest ventilation level is stronger than any ventilation in any other car I've ever driven. It's still nice that with some really good sport seats you can still get ventilation. And then such a good one. This Corvette Grand Sport with the competition package, meaning it's basically full optioned out, costs 120,000 Swiss francs, which equates to about $120 at the moment. And yes, cars are more expensive in Europe, but at that price it's actually quite a good value. Because, for example, a base level Porsche 911, a Carrera 2, starts at 128,000 francs, and then it's without options. And also, to be fair, this is a very track-focused car. Therefore, the Porsche to compare it with would be the 911 GT3. And the GT3 starts at 200,000 francs. So, in that relation, this car is really good value. This car also has a few kind of odd little features that I think I should mention. For one thing, the screen for the infotainment, if you push this button, it goes down and it reveals a cabby hole behind it, which is odd, but practical. This car also has a function called the Performance Data Recorder, which is basically a built-in dash cam that will record video and overlay it with some data from the car, like speed, which gear you're in, revs, G-forces and whatsoever. So when you're on a track, you can basically record your laps and track all your data, which is kind of funny. But you can also program the performance recorder to record when the car is in valet mode, meaning when you're giving it to someone else to park it to see whether they do some mischief with the car. Another interesting feature of this car is that the screen in the instrument cluster, it can display the temperature of the tires. This is something I've personally not seen in many cars, and I don't know how useful it is in these conditions because it basically always shows cold since I'm not on a track, but then again, it's interesting. This car also has an electronically controlled rear limited slip differential, and there is also a display for that in the instrument cluster, showing you how much slippage it's allowing. Very interesting. I don't know what to do with that information, but you get it. This car has very large tires and a locking differential, which means that maneuvering and turning in tight spaces will make the car jump about. Not the greatest experience, but then again, this is a car for the track, isn't it? There's another interesting feature. This car is keyless go, keyless start, which means you can unlock the doors by just pushing the button if you carry the key, and at the same time you can just push a button to start the engine without having to insert the key anywhere, which is pretty standard nowadays. However, what I couldn't figure out is how do you lock the car without using the key? Because there's a button for opening the car, but the same button doesn't lock it, and there is no other button. So you either have to push the button on the remote control, or you have to, I don't know, does it auto lock when you walk away? It's just weird. Also, being a Corvette, of course, the doors are electronically operated, meaning there is a button to open and close the door instead of a lever or something like this. And this car has really wide tires, which means then on a day like today where it's wet and the road is not the greatest, it kind of wants to go where it wants and not where the driver wants to go. So it's kind of a fight with the car, but then again, with a track car with such large tires, it's basically normal. I think this car has 275mm tires in the front and 335 in the rear. The tires are 40mm wider than the standard Corvette Stingray, and they even had to widen the wheel arches a bit to have them fit, which I think is funny because already a Corvette Stingray doesn't really have narrow tires. This car, while being a pretty hard and harsh car, it has Chevrolet's magnetic ride suspension, meaning that when you put it into sport or track mode, it gets even harder, which I guess is good on a racetrack. In the real world, it could be a bit more comfortable. But then again, this car is not primarily aimed at the real world. I really like this car, but right now I am really hating it. You see, in Switzerland, fall has now really come down hard, meaning it's wet, it's really cold, around 3 degrees Celsius. This car with its very, very wide track tires, very little grip, being rear-wheel drive, not the greatest experience, meaning I actually cannot really drive this car properly. It's very, very nerve-wracking driving around with this car because it has almost no traction. The moment you really hit the gas, it just starts spinning. No traction, no traction, no traction. No traction. It might be fun on a racetrack or somewhere like that. On the public roads, it's scary. And I know you can call me a big pussy, but driving this car under these conditions, no fun. Imagine you're eating the nicest chocolate cake you've ever had. It's really, really great. It has the perfect texture. However, there are shards of razor blades within it. So you can still eat it, but you have to be really, really careful. Otherwise, you'll die. And it's pretty much the same with this car. I can still drive it under these conditions, but if I don't watch out, if I'm not careful, then I'm gonna spin out, I'm gonna kill myself. So really great car. I absolutely love it, but I don't want to drive it anymore. spinning, 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 spinning. It's really nice to drive a manual rear-wheel drive sports car, but you know, not in this weather and not with these tires. It's really, really hard to drive this car. I'm actually afraid to go higher up in the mountains because I'm pretty sure I might find snow there, and if I find snow, then well, I'm screwed. And yeah, therefore I'm driving around town and you know, just being sensible, which is exactly what you want when you're driving a Corvette Grand Sport. Yeah, you see, that's what I mean. And I didn't really mash the pedal, and I was in the weather mode, which means the safest modes there is in this car. This car has 5 driving modes, one being weather, then there's eco, there's touring, there's sports, and there's track. And funny thing, when you change the driving mode, your display in the instrument cluster changes as well, which is, you know, a nice little touch. But then again, I don't really care about it because even in weather mode, the car is almost undrivable. Then again, this is a track car and you don't drive on a track like this. So yeah, really, really love the car. Hate to drive it in this weather.